Hey guys, what's up, man? 945 here. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing an anime that I very recently finished watching called Monster. Monster is a anime originally based off a manga made by Urasawa Naoki. That came out in 2002 and the anime aired from 2004 to 2005. Um, and it is one of the most brilliantly constructed stories I've ever consumed in a medium. And when I say constructed, I mean that literally because this anime does something I haven't seen, like, except for maybe with One Piece. But to be honest, the level at which this anime does trumps One Piece easily for me. Because it will introduce um a lot of characters um and um and it somehow manages to make every single character be relevant to the plot, all the while um simultaneously developing those characters. Like there's like characters that were in one-off episodes in the beginning of the series that reappear um either either as a reaction to something that has happened to Tenma or because they actually are secretly a brilliant role in the plot. So that aspect of it was absolutely brilliant, and the amount of crazy plot twists as well, and just like my brain being blown at how every single tiny thread comes together like a complex spider web was just so amazing to think about. Um, I had quite a lot of fun thinking about that and just like trying to like imagine everything in my head. Excuse me. Um, and in particular, well, I can't really think where I was going with that. Um, but another thing that this anime does incredibly is its themes. Obviously the name of the show is Monster, and there's very plot relevant reasons tying to the antagonist. I will get to late in a little bit. Um, about why he's one of the greatest villains in all of fiction. But first, I really want to talk about how just absolutely effectively this anime nails its themes. Because at its core, it is a character study about the nature of humanity and like whether someone is born evil and what are the evil aspects of a person slash like um what is like examining what is the monster inside everyday humans. And the amount of diversity this receives is just absolutely unbelievable when you first think about it. Um, so what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to kind of run through a lot of my favorite examples of this, just to kind of capture like the sheer scope of this. Um, and the brilliant thing about these like side episodes that kind of essentially introduce these kinds of characters is because ultimately they are either it's simultaneously developing one side character and a major character at the same time incredibly. and it's advancing the plot at the same time by like bringing in little details or like building out the world. Um, and so the way that that's why I said that's another aspect of the brilliantly constructed plot is the way that these side episodes manage to encompass all of those things all at once is just amazing stuff. Um, but the first of the major side characters really meet is in episode 9, where Henma goes off for 5 months to learn how to shoot a gun, essentially, and also get more fit. And so he like becomes trained by like this person that really knows guns really well. And you see that he has what's revealed to be a Vietnamese daughter. I believe it was Vietnamese. Um, I might be getting that wrong. Maybe it was Cambodian. I can't remember exactly. Um, and the reason that he does this is because he unknowingly killed the girl's mother, like when he was previously enlisted in the military. And he's trying to atone for his sins by raising the kid as his own. And by the end of it's either that episode or the it's either like that or like a 2 episode mini thing. The daughter ends up actually talking more, ends up accepting him as her father, and that relationship is just so wholesome, and the way it's just like pays off. Um, because at the same time, it's also bringing a lot of characterization to Tenma as a protagonist. And I really, really just liked how, um, I just liked, I just really liked it. Um, and I'm gonna run through a ton of the examples. They aren't necessarily gonna be in order though. Um, My personal favorite character, besides Johann obviously being the best one, my other favorite character across the whole series, the whole show, was Launch. And I thought that Lunge was an extremely interesting character that proved as an excellent kind of counterfoil to Tenma and everything Tenma was trying to do. Um, I loved like his general vibe. He's like almost like he was a machine, and the way he like typed things in his head. Um, and the way that he's used to reveal parts of the plot. Um, and also the way that like essentially the monster inside him is the fact that he is basically too much of a workaholic to the point where his wife ends up leaving him for another guy. He never ends up meeting his grandchild because his daughter wants nothing to do with him because they've never interacted before. And there's this one episode where he essentially goes home. And it's this fantastic episode that's almost entirely dedicated to Lunge's home life. And it's amazing because of just how much perspective it provides to him as a character. Um, Another example I really like is earlier on in the series when Tenma visits a remote village and there is a doctor that is in need of his assistance, and this doctor is trying to help as many patients as he can because he was unable to do so for his own wife, and there ends up being another woman he falls in love with that he wants to provide medical treatment for to make sure the same thing doesn't happen again. And the monster inside him is essentially not trying to repeat the same mistakes in the past and ensuring that he is able to do something when he's like asked or called to do it. Um, and and a lot of these examples can also be extremely simple because like there's another episode where Nina is like on the run essentially and like working for a job. And bit by bit, you're also at the same time learning more about Nina as a character. And also, like, it's kind of revealed slowly, like, this man that runs a cafe used to actually be, I think it was a spy? Or no, it was a sniper. It was a sniper, yeah. And kind of the regret that he has for his actions and how and what he learns from that, basically, and the various tips that he's able to offer to Nina. Um, I also really, really love the character of Dr. Gillen. He is quite a major, important character, especially in the middle, near the end. But the way he's introduced is absolutely fantastic because he's a criminal psychologist and his interactions with a lot of the other characters are fantastic. Um, and the monster inside him is the fact that he doesn't know Tenma particularly well, even though Tenma is coming to him. So he kind of like laments that fact. Also the fact that his monster was just cheating on a college exam. And the fact that him and Tamna are developed simultaneously, being able to bond over the fact that they both actually cheated on the same college exam, actually. Um, um, and then there's another example where it's got the most tragic Johann induced death of the series by far. But there's a character that is like see that is like being and going under that is like an alcoholic essentially. As a result, he's basically destroyed his life by doing that. And he's been really trying to like relapse and or not relapse, become sober again. Um so he can finally like meet his daughter and things just do not go well for him. And it's so sad because you really want this guy to do well, but then Johann kills him and and that makes him very, very hateable. Believe me. Um and then there's obviously I literally could talk about so many different characters in this series, but this video would be ages long. I don't remember every single one. I'm just talking about ones that were particularly highlighted that stood out in my mind. Because another one of my favorite examples of a well, okay, I gotta talk about two more. The first one I'll talk about is, of course, Grimmer, one of the best characters in this show. Because his whole thing is he's actually another. Okay, I'm gonna talk about more than just one more. Grimmer's whole thing is the fact that he is actually the survivor of Kinderheim 511, which is a major plot point in the story. Um, and he essentially came out of it alive compared to a lot of other kids essentially, but and not as messed up as Johann, but he doesn't really have the capacity to feel emotions. And that series of episodes where he like tries to rescue Milos from being influenced by Johann to kill the for the kid to kill himself. Um and just he's constantly asking Tenma like, is this like what emotions are supposed to feel like? It's this perfect emotional resolution to his character because he's suddenly feeling all these emotions and he knows he's feeling them the right way and that makes him happy and sad at the same time. And the ironic thing is he goes from feeling no emotions to suddenly being overwhelmed by them and having to learn to process emotions one by one. And and obviously his death was so incredibly tragic. Um, and he was of course killed by the most hateable character in the show, Roberto. But I also think that Roberto is another genius example of this because Roberto is an example of examining the monster inside of what happens when you too blindly cling to an ideal. And in this case, and just like the case with the Kristoff character who was called the Devil's Apprentice, you see this like example where this character like essentially blindly follows an ideal to literal death, mind you. He literally dies following the ideals and beliefs of Johann. Um, and just having a little representation of that is so perfect. Another one I want to talk about is the former director of Kinderheim 511, who was this terrible guy that essentially liked to examine kids and brainwash them, and he loved performing experiments on them. And he also runs this orphanage, which sounds really sus, when it's investigated by Grimmer. Um, and then as he dies, as he's of course killed by Johann, obviously, um, uh, his character comes full circle because he wasn't raising the children. He raised those children like as an experiment of love to try and understand what it was like to love children instead of raising them while like not feeling anything towards them and just treating them as test subjects. And and examples I want to think of. Yeah, okay, there's one more I really, really want to talk about, and that is I forget his name, but he's a dentist. Oh, Mizlan, that's his name, Mizlan. And he lives with this family of like other refugees, essentially. Like there's a Chinese person, there's like an Indian, there's like a Vietnamese person, there's like a Turkish person, there's like a I don't remember all of them, but there's like this giant family of refugees, and Peter Chapek, a major, major character towards the end of the show, is essentially the one responsible for murdering all their families in one way or another, and because it was Franz Bonaparte's right hand man, and it's this backstory that reveals that like um how Chapek essentially like how they used to be best friends growing up and how they made this promise to each other to escape the perils of like the communism and such like that. And also the way that the plot manages to include like also manages to simultaneously develop Japek as a character who is another example of like what happens when you too blindly follow something and when you follow serious regret over your actions. And then Mizlan, by comparison, is a perfect example of examining what happens when you feed the cycle of hatred and vengeance and wanting to put a stop to it. And the way and his interactions with Tenma are genius. And this especially because this interaction is very, very close to the end of the show, which is just a sign of how well the plot is actually constructed that even like when the plot is seriously ramping up at this point, 'cause this is like around episode 65 or something like that, that this kind of stuff happens, that it's still able to pull off the exact same charm and um like s- excellent writing quality for every single character that it includes. Um, and that's all the examples that really come to mind right now. Um, Now the last big thing that I want to talk about is, of course, the thing that is deservedly the most celebrated part about the show, and that is Johan, the best character in the show, and by far, well, not by far, well, one of the best villains in all of fiction, and probably the best anime villain of all time. Let's be real here. Um, I really don't. The more I think about it, I really don't see anyone topping Johan. Because not only does he have the hateability factor of killing a ton of just just lovable characters, which gives him the hateability and a pure evil aspect to him. Um, I also adore how Johan is kind of like this almost ethereal presence throughout most of the story, which is crazy to think about considering he's the main antagonist. But it works because it's almost horror-esque the way that Johan is mentioned and the way that he subtly murders so many characters and is just constantly in the background, and when he shows up he's manipulating so many characters, and the way that he's manipulating Hans George Shuval, for example, who's another character I didn't even mention, um but I'm not going to get into now, but another fantastic character, the way that Shuvald reflects on him being perfect, almost too perfect, and the way that he essentially shows himself to Tenma, but at the same time, no one can really find out proof of who he actually is, and where the proof he actually committed all the murders and not Tenma. Unlike Tenma, who's been suspected of everything. Um, and also his there's also the fact that he is just the one of the most royally effed up people of all time. Because of all the crazy things that happened between him being at Kinderheim 511, him going through Franz Bonaparte's brainwashing and the book readings, him having his parents killed at a young age, the fact that he internalized honest traumatic experiences at the Red Rose Mansion, and he had to go through the emotional trauma, realizing that wasn't actually his experience, um, to basically him being a literal monster, because that's the entire point of the story. There's so many characters that refer to him and his general presence just as a monster, such as even the former Czechoslovakia secret police that are searching for a monster of a human. And it's so easy to connect the dots that it's Johann that they're talking about. And the way that his reputation is built up is perfect because he's just exactly that monstrous and inhumane, because he kills so many characters, including people that are extremely close to him, and his motivations are entirely selfish and horrible, and he purely wants to see the world go up in flames. But at the same time, he is also not inhumane because he's also an extremely human character because it's clear, because he's extremely empathetic to the plight of so many other characters and what they're going through. And the way that he uses this to psychologically manipulate people, whether it's Rebecca for blindly following him, the children for jumping off the roof to die, Hans-Georg Schuvald, into doing whatever the hell he wants and isolating him from every one of his relationships. Um, the way that he casually gains revenge on every single figure that basically did him wrong in life. Um, the way that he kills characters that he just does not deem relevant, such as the baby. Um, there's another character I didn't even talk about. The way that he causes all this death and trauma to um Ava and Martin, like he is just so perfectly written, and his ending is so incredibly poetic because the only thing he wanted to do was die and have Tenma kill him. And um and the fact that Tenma ends up saving his life in the exact same way a second time, and he's kind of counter dynamic to Tenma, by the way, who's an excellent protagonist throughout the entire show. They're counter dynamic throughout the entire show, showing how um like they're the foil to each other, whereas Tim believes all life is equal. Um Johann believes the only way people are equal is in death. Um and the way that Tenma believes that he has to kill the thing he created, but he ends up saving at the same time. So there's irony in that part of it. Um and there's just so many little things you can analyze between it, along with the fact that there are so many aspects of his character that really correlate perfectly and are shaped by the nameless monster, which perfectly embodies his entire character because Johann isn't his actual name, and his actual name is never actually revealed. Further confirming the ambiguous ending and the idea that Johann is the nameless monster. I rest my case. Um, because And also, well, okay, one more point. The way he manipulates people is the same way the monster in the story gobbles up people and ends up using them with a Johann Pachinko name, and that's where the name came from for him because of the way General Wolf found the darkness emanating from him. Okay, I'm done. I rest my case. Johann is one of the greatest villains in all fiction. And after making this video, I'm gonna have to reevaluate my villains ranking for Johan, I think, because wow. But overall, this is one of the most brilliantly constructed stories I've ever seen across any medium. It is an absolutely incredible anime. That is just a absolutely spectacular story on every level with immaculate, immense amounts of detail with every single character in every part of the plot. There's so much thought put into it, and Urasawa Naoki is truly a unrivaled genius for this work. And I highly, 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 highly recommend this to anyone that has never heard of or seen it before because it is amazing. I rest my case. Um, uh, that is going to be it for this video. Please watch Monster. It's fucking incredible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.